Welcome back to the console room on tobeseen.com. I'm Captain Joe Dove, and I am introducing your host with the longest scarf on this side of Cardiff, Ernesto.
Oh, thank you, Captain Joe. Yeah, sorry about the Sonic sunglasses at the beginning, but had to get through this episode somehow.
Oh,
As my girl River would say, spoilers.
Spoilers.
Oh,
Well,
my goodness.
Well, if you haven't seen this episode, which came out 2 years ago, I think you're in the wrong realm.
This is true, but from all the other podcasts we've done, when you watch something for the first time, there's a level of excitement to it, especially with Lower Decks or the new Discovery or a new show, whatever genre we're talking. There's always a level of excitement when you're watching something for the first time. And it's only after the second and third watching that you can actually just be, take yourself a little bit back and be completely analytical about, whether it's Lower Decks or, Only Murders in the Building or whichever podcast we're discussing. You have to watch the episode a couple of times so that you can be, you get over that initial giddy, oh boy, new episode. Okay, now let's actually sit and watch this again and see if it holds up under the adrenaline and excitement of something new.
Right. So I think we're coming at this.
How do you think this one fared?
You know what's funny? I think we're coming at this with different eyes because for me, it was a little messy, but I thought that her final season was better than her first two. And I just felt her final words of goodbye were a little off. But we'll get into that because who are we talking about? Doctor Who?
Doctor Who?
Doctor Who? Doctor Who? Doctor Who?
Fellas, you're never going to stop asking.
We are talking about the swan song of the last incarnation of the Doctor in the last episode called Power of the Doctor. And that would be played by Jodie Whittaker. She was the 14th Doctor, right?
Okay. Here's where math
it gets a little bit wobbly with me, right?
Really wobbly as time.
Yeah.
She was the 13th actor to play the Doctor.
Okay.
Let's do it. Let's do some quick math. William Hartnell, Patrick Troughton, John Pertwee, Tom Baker, Peter Davison, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, and
Paul McGann.
Mm-hmm. Paul McGann. And then from Paul, and then we go to New Who, which, by the way, we did do some research, and yes, you were right. This incarnation of Doctor Who, everything from 2005 to 2023, is considered New Who.
New Who.
New Who.
All right. Eccleston was 9. Tennant was 10. Smith was 11. Peter Capaldi was 12. Jodie Whittaker's 13.
13.
Right. But there was
now there were a couple of other doctors in there that that they've thrown curveballs at us. But as far as the actor count, let's just stick to that. And Jodie, the great Jodie Whittaker, was the 13th actor to play the Doctor.
So the 13th Doctor is in her very special swan song. That is her bow out of the character and moving on, and we're getting a new Doctor with an old face. But we'll get into that. This episode gets...
We got a lot of doctors. We got a lot of old faces in this episode.
We did.
Quite frankly, that was one of the things that I actually kind of enjoyed about it. For a lot of people, that's, again, one of the things that I really do love about New Who is that they're not shy about their past. They have no problem incorporating and bringing bringing back actors, bringing back characters, and obviously bringing back doctors in one respect. Well, technically two, bringing a doctor back to life. The great William Hartnell, who played the first doctor, has passed in 1975. But the amazing David Bradley cast as William Hartnell for the BBC TV movie An Adventure in Space and Time, reprises his role as the first Doctor, not only in Peter Capaldi's last episode, but in this one as well, along with Peter Davison, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, and the extremely underrated Paul McGann.
Yes. We've got all the familiar, friendly faces of the Doctor there. We really enjoyed seeing them. I love the robe that they were wearing, but I like that Paul McGann was like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I felt like he stood out again, and he was like on the cusp of being the War Doctor. He was the last version to switch over.
Yeah. I actually just read something very interesting about the War Doctor, since we're discussing the Doctor right now. Initially, when it wasn't Russell, it was Stephen Moffat. When they did the 60th anniversary, they wanted to tell the War Doctor's story, which they did, but initially they wanted to do it a little bit differently. They wanted to have, I believe it was Christopher Eccleston as that Doctor. Christopher Eccleston was going to be
the 50th.
Doctor who fought in the Time War. Unfortunately, there was a lot of issues. You all can read about that. It's not my place to say. But let's just say that the BBC didn't come to an agreement with the actor. I think that's fair enough to say. So instead, they wrote this whole other, hey, that's the great thing about a Time Lord. He can regenerate. We can we can just plug in another actor. And with the late great John Hurt, it was wonderful to see him.
And he did a really good job. Yeah,
he was perfect. He absolutely was perfect. To be the one Doctor when he couldn't be the Doctor. And just, he was old. He was, he was long in the tooth, but that grizzle, and there was a little de-aging on him, so you could tell that this was a long life that he had. But again, amazing casting, and just shows that the show itself can land Academy Award-winning actors to play, in a relatively small part. It says a lot about the fan base and the
show itself.
The show itself, and the crew and the writers, and the trust that the talent has in the behind the scenes on the making of Doctor Who.
Right. So one of the things that's going on with this episode is all your favorites are back. We've got a ton of companions, a ton of villains, and the main baddie is back, kind of taking the wheel, so to speak, and of course, putting a huge crisis on the planet Earth that is going to ruin it in several different time periods to really put an ultimate destruction to the Doctor. And this is a great way to probably send off Jodie Whittaker, because we get to see some of our old favorite faces, and everything kind of culminates in the end, because there is a new species that we're introduced to at the end, kind of in the middle of the story. And that species is just harnessing so much power that it can just obliterate or create planets, which I thought was a really neat trick. And
definitely an interesting trick. Again, it was a bit too much of a MacGuffin for me. In the same way that the Sonics, look, we all love Sonics, but the Sonic is by definition a MacGuffin. Okay, we need something fixed. How do we do that? Just point the Sonic at it, and it'll work. And just to have this one species that can harness energy, and that it just seemed a little contrite to me. But you know what? We can get to that. We can get to that when we go to
get to the enemies. But with the Doctor in this episode, he's not alone. She's not alone. Excuse me.
No.
And she brings a litany of companions in this one, and we got a couple of surprises in this one. So, let's roll that beautiful bean.
See, I met this person, and I got whooshed away across all space and time. I mean, I had the most amazing adventures, really. I mean, you wait till you hear, because I'm going to tell you them all.
It was so nice to see him back. I fell in love with this character when he's on the beach sipping tea, and he had such an emotional entrance into the role with his grandson and his wife and what happened to his wife. I thought it was a really amazing kickoff for them, but he was just one of many that
Graham. Yes, Graham was definitely a favorite of mine as well. There could have been so much that you could have done with Graham, but Chibnall and the rest of the writers went the way they ended up going, and so be it. Dan, speaking of swan songs, Dan, they made such a big deal about the actor coming into the last series, and John Bishop was apparently quite a big name in the UK, and to have him on Doctor Who was a great thing. And 5 minutes into the last episode, okay, all right, Doc, I'm out of here. Bye.
Yeah, wow, this is getting crazy. I'll see you later.
Okay. Is this really? I mean, okay, yes, maybe this is the closest he had come to meeting mortality, but you can't tell me that this is the first time that any Doctor has put any companion in a precarious position. And let's be honest, it's not like Dan had a lot to go back to.
No.
But
hey,
it is what it is.
It is. We had Yaz in this one. She's been the main companion of this particular Doctor. I thought she was fantastic, and there was just so much fun. And then we had a reunion. We had glimpses of the old Doctor and glimpses of some of the old Doctor's companions. We had Ace.
And
it was so good to see.
And Be Still My Heart. Janet Fielding playing Tegan Jovanka. She still looks amazing. Not to say that Sophie Aldred as Ace, is missing a step. Not at all. These are two seasoned actors who they did their time, and like so many other of the Doctor's companions, what do you do? What do you do when you leave the TARDIS? Can you go back to, as Rose once said, can you go back to working in a shop and eating chips?
Yeah, exactly.
No, apparently you go join UNIT. Apparently that's the place everybody seems to go, is to go join UNIT and, and just try and relive some of your, use that knowledge that you learn traveling through space and time with the Doctor to... Okay, there's something strange, something strange in your neighborhood. Who are you going to call? The companions.
Oh, yeah, true. And then we also got a very special guest who is sort of a companion, and that is Jacob Anderson. We know as Grey Worm from Game of Thrones.
Yes. He was in one other episode. It was good to see him. It was good to see. You're so used to seeing him as Grey Worm, but with that different costume, he looked phenomenal. Always great to see Gemma Redgrave replaying her role as Kate Lethbridge Stewart. A perfect Great character and great nepotism, taking over unit after her dad, the late great Brigadier Alistair Gordon Lethbridge Stewart.
Yes.
Such an English name. You really do not get more English than that name.
No, you don't. You don't. Unless it's John Smith. So the companions are all pulling together, and each time she touches one of the companions, she zaps him. Which
a lot of static shock on the set that day.
Yeah.
Or was it?
Yes. It was all part of a plan because the Doctor knew better, and the Doctor knew what the big overall plan was going to be. There was so much wibbly wobbly going on in this episode that it was almost hard to keep up.
Almost
because it was just so much going on at once. It was like, this should have been longer.
Yeah, it could have used a flow chart. Since we are discussing companions, the last scene, which we use as our bumper, which I absolutely love. For some fans who are only fans of New Who, maybe they weren't sure at who some of those faces were. We had Mel, played by Bonnie Langford. She was a companion of the Seventh Doctor. The incomparable Jo Grant, the beautiful Jo Grant, played by the phenomenal Katie Manning. A little bit of trivia, something for you to Google after the show. Katie Manning Dalek, 1960s. This is a family show, so I won't get into details, but dads and maybe some of the moms out there will definitely want to see this picture. There was also the return of Ian Chesterton, played by the wonderful William Russell, who was one of the first companions. He was Susan's teacher. Susan, the granddaughter of the first Doctor.
Right.
Yes.
Who was a Time Lord as well, right?
The first Doctor was a Time Lord, yes, but
no, the daughter,
Ian was not.
Granddaughter.
Ian was just a
the granddaughter.
Susan. That was never said one way or the other.
Right.
Because remember at the time, the character, the origins of the character wasn't as flushed out as it became later in the run of the show. The word the name Time Lord wasn't even uttered until the last series with Patrick Troughton, I believe, called War Games. It was then and only then that we found out that the Doctor, belongs to this race from the planet Gallifrey, where they are called Time Lords.
Right.
So Susan is one of those gray areas. If anyone has any other information that maybe I missed, an article that I didn't see, definitely subscribe, ring that bell, and in the comments, let me know if there's something I missed. Let me know if there's some canon or beta canon about Susan being a Time Lord.
Yes, absolutely. And if you are so bold, you can follow us on social media on the Console Room or To Be Seen. We'll get right back to you. We'll chat. We'll have a good time talking about Doctor Who. So we got in through with the companions. We had so many. They had almost an AA meeting of companions because they missed going through space and time.
I would love to know what that support group is actually called.
Right.
There was a great episode in series 2 during David Tennant where a group similar to this idea, where a group of people who knew of the Doctor's existence all met and to discuss the Doctor. They had never traveled with him, but they knew of his existence. They had seen him or saw a blue box disappearing. The name of the episode escapes me at the present moment. But again, if someone could drop it in the comments, that would be greatly appreciated. It was one of the first episodes where the story, even though it was about the Doctor, didn't focus specifically on the Doctor. It focused on the other characters and seeing all the companions together. Again, just like last week, we saw the Stolen Earth and Journey's End. We had all the companions flying the TARDIS, and they did it again.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody had their one station around the console, and they flew the TARDIS back home together.
Yes. A lot of parallels between the two episodes that we talked about. Both were
Definitely.
the beginning of the Swans, the last episodes, the final episodes of the Doctors. Both had to deal with all of the major menaces and enemies that the Doctor faced, save one that Jodie actually got to deal with. And since we're talking about those enemies, we might as well roll it.
I shall now kill you, Doctor.
Yes, the Cybermen came back in this iteration as Cybermasters. So they were like Time Lord Cybermen because reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And of course, we've got our beloved favorite Daleks came back. We had a really neat
great
moment.
To see the Daleks, but you know, did we really need them?
It was an interesting.
Did we really need them?
It was an interesting swerve because you got this Dalek that was like, "Hey, listen, a lot of bad stuff is going on. I'm here to help you. You know, work with me, and then we'll fix it." And then she goes into the center of a volcano, and the Dalek's like, "Okay, so I'm a traitor to my race, and what I'm trying to tell you is they're drilling into the tectonic plates, and they're trying to make earthquakes all over the place." So, and then all of a sudden the Daleks come out, and she's like, "Is this why you brought me over here to, like, you know, to try to trick me?" He goes, "No, we knew he was a traitor." So it was like they knew the whole time that this.
Yeah,
this
and
Dalek,
not the first time that they've done that either.
No,
they did the same. Yeah, they did the same thing with during Peter Capaldi's run with another Dalek called Rusty that the Doctor named Rusty. And Rusty was exactly now. If they hadn't exterminated him, it would have been a nice tie-in that the traitor went on to be Rusty. That's how I would have wrote it.
Right.
You know, but again, not exactly an original idea. However, what was an original idea was having the Master doing something that has never been done before. First of all, to be Rasputin or Rasputin.
Yeah.
Ingenious.
Rah, Rasputin, master of the disco scene. I love that little tie-in. That was pretty nice.
That was great.
Yeah, getting down and dancing. And he even did the dance too, which I love.
He did the dance.
You know, like,
I'm sure that song was charting shortly after the episode
absolutely.
aired again.
Absolutely. But his ultimate plan, the Master was the main baddie of this. His ultimate plan was to get the two species together, the Daleks and the Cyber Masters, and basically switch and make the Doctor fade into obscurity, be the last regeneration, and pull all the energy to himself and swap it so he can go into the Doctors. And that was his big plan. And he had to use the power of this new entity that was in between the worlds and the power of the cores of volcanoes. So, you know, he did this, he swapped it out, and he was the Doctor. But what the little details that I did enjoy on this was he was every Doctor. He had the scarf, he had the lapel. Yeah, the costume was an amalgamation of every Doctor that we knew. And I thought that was amazing. That was a real nice touch. The suit, the uniform, everything. There was a little bit of everybody. And
great touch. Everything from the stalk of celery,
to
the check pants, If there's only a couple of shots, and if you blink and you miss them, but the checked pants, excuse me, the checked pants he was wearing were an homage to the second Doctor, Patrick Troughton. But yeah, that amalgamated costume was just a work of beauty. I would love to do that cosplay myself.
That's gonna cost
you know, yeah, that would be one great cosplay to do.
Yeah. So of course we have this entity, and it turns out that the Master was using the entity to kind of be the catalyst to go about that drastic change and to switch them. But of course, the Doctor knew that there was something afoot and put a little bit of herself in her companions again. And once they got back together, of course, with Jacob Anderson, Grey Worm, they were able to foil the Master's plan and reverse it. But unfortunately, what was left after they dispatched the Master, reversing what he did, that entity was giving off a last blast, and the Master in the 1919, the Rasputin Master, was able to control that entity and made it move and hit the 13th Doctor and the 14th Doctor, and it really took her out.
That's
either way.
So this turned in one respect, the Master did what he said to do, that he was going to kill the Doctor, and in that respect he did. But before that happened, let's go back, not only talking about the Doctor, but the companions and the AI. Hey, for once, an AI can actually do some good.
Yeah.
The AI, as the AI visited each one of the Doctor's former companions. At first, it shows up as 13 as Jodie, but as Ace is arguing with her, she reverts back to Sylvester McCoy and the 7th Doctor, and she calls him Professor. The only companion to ever call the Doctor something other than Doctor.
Right.
When she did it there was almost a condescension in Ace, because she remembered she was written to be an 80s punk, which is why she had the baseball bat.
Yeah.
But then also seeing Tegan in her moment of need. And here comes the 13th Doctor, who Tegan, isn't really all that connected to, but Tegan's emotions take over the same way Ace's did, and here you see the face of the 5th Doctor. That handsome young man that we all remember, and we also see why Tegan is not exactly a big fan of Cybermen.
Yes.
The Cybermen that killed, and this is also brought up in this episode, the Cybermen killed Adric, which was, if I'm not mistaken, the first companion to die in all of Doctor Who, and that was in, I believe it was 83. The shows were called Earthshock, and Adric was killed by the Cybermen. So for Tegan to see the Cybermen again, that brought up a lot of PTSD in her. So she needed her Doctor.
Yep.
To convince her, no, Braveheart Tegan, you can do this. And the look on her face when she says, "I missed you," just tears. Just what?
Yeah.
Such great emotion from talented actors, and exactly what us of a certain age and a certain generation really wanted to see.
Yeah. And then we got another surprise. We have the real wibbly wobbly timey wimey Doctor that pops up
Yes.
The other woman doctor.
The lost. What
the
do they
lost
call
doctor,
her? I
right.
think it's the
lost doctor.
I don't have it. I don't have it here. This was, and this was not during the Guardians of the Edge scene. This was
fugitive
she was
doctor.
the lost child. The fugitive doctor.
Right. So the fugitive doctor came back.
And again, folks, in full disclosure, I am not a huge fan of this incarnation. Has nothing to do with Jodie Whittaker. I think she's a phenomenal actor. It's just the writing that really just didn't do it for me. There was so many episodes that just did not make sense, and this renegade doctor is just paramount in what both of them don't recognize each other. That just you're trying to add something new in, and it's just not working. I understood the necessity for having Yaz show the renegade doctor as the AI because no one knew who that was. So everyone was taking.
And they've had time together, so yeah. So the AI was the AI was picking doctors that fit to the companions that they were family to, and
I think that Yaz actually programmed the AI to have the renegade doctor come in, because that if you remember, there was a line that the renegade doctor pretty much said that when talking about the hologram, the AI. So I think that was done on purpose to confuse the Cybermen, and obviously
and the Daleks that were there.
Yeah, apparently when the Cybermen mixed with Time Lords, apparently all the Time Lord intelligence didn't seem to get through those metal skulls, did they?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. But hey, reasons, they're regenerating. Let's use that regeneration energy to do a reverse generation, which has never been done before. And why not?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
all right, Chris.
So now we've come to the end of that and the end of Jodie Whittaker's Doctor.
Right then. Doctor whoever I'm about to be. Tag. You're it.
I know these teeth. What? What?
I thought that was very clever because that was the way to get another doctor in at the same time.
Absolutely, it works. It works for a lot of reasons. It's a great bridge to the 60th anniversary. Plus, as we know now, the three stories are going to revolve around Donna and Donna's memory.
Mm-hmm.
We also know that there is in the trailer, which I put up on, which I've reposted on our
social
Council
media
Room's TikTok page.
Mm-hmm.
Even the doctor even says something's coming. He knows there's a reason why 13 regenerated into 14, but with that face, with those teeth.
And 14 into 15, right?
No, Jodie Whittaker was the 13th. Again, we're not gonna add in the
John
War Doctor and the two technical. If you really want to get technical, and here's where we get really timey-wimey, David Tennant has played 3 Doctors.
Okay.
He was 10. Then he regenerated. He regenerated into 11. In Journey's End. And now David Tennant is back as Dr. 14.
Yes.
So again, let's just go by what the writers are calling it. David Tennant is 14.
Okay.
So there's a reason why this doctor is coming back. And we know part of that reason is Donna. And we will find out on Friday when the first of the, as I sit here patiently waiting, rubbing my hands for what was sure to be history in Doctor Who, the first of the 60th anniversary specials starring David Tennant and Catherine Tate, which drops exclusively on Disney Plus this Friday, the 25th, I believe it is.
Yeah.
Yes. Friday, November 25th, the day after Thanksgiving here in the U.S. and on Friday in the BBC. So this
it's going to be a lot of fun.
Be interesting.
And be sure to join us next Tuesday, where we will get right back into the thick of it, and we'll talk all about the new adventures of a familiar face and the 14th Doctor and Donna and all the fun times that we're going to have. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for downloading. And while you're here, if you're downloading and if you enjoyed any part of this, please give us a nice 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform. And we'd appreciate it if you give us the like, share, and subscribe. Give us a follow on your favorite streaming platforms. And while you're doing that, be sure to visit our friends, because we have friends. Be sure to visit us.
We do have friends.
We have lots of friends. Be sure to visit our producer, VHS Jace, over on Pop Culture Spread. You may see a familiar face on that channel one day, besides the other co-host, Rick. And they're getting into the movie and streaming news all over the internets. So be sure to join the two gentlemen there. A lot of fun to watch. Be sure to check out the amazing show called The Captain's Quadrant, where myself and Jason Roy Gaston will be talking all fun things that are Star Trek related. And this week we were able to interview in section 31.5, because we have questions, the incomparable background actor David Jones, who was in Strange New Worlds. And of course, my co-host there, Jason Roy Gaston, has his own channel where comedy goes to die. So join Jason and all his furry friends as they talk about all things TV and pop culture themselves. And of course, if you like this video and you like hearing me, we just reviewed the Marvels. So, that was a controversial movie, but the MCU makes no flops, right? So check out the 1 week later video there. Ernesto, I will see you next week.
I will see you next week. What are a feeling that the episode that we do next week is going to be a tad longer. I think we're going to have a lot to unpack, and definitely a lot of speculation, a lot of theories, and we're just going to be floored by this incredible 60 years of Doctor Who.
Absolutely. All right, guys.
The history is amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, good night.